Hello Algebra 1 class, this is Mr. An. For today's classwork, we're going to cover 4 questions from the CUDA software worksheet. This will hopefully help you with the homework that's also going to be from this worksheet. Alright, we're going to start with number 4. In number 4, we have a trinomial. We're going to take the factors of the first term and the third term. In the first term, we have the factors 1n and 5n. For the third term, we have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. We can confirm this by trying to go through each of these factors. 1 goes into 12, 2 goes into 12, 3 goes into 12. The next number is 4 goes into 12, but we've already gone full circle, so we can stop. Now, you will notice, however, that I repeated these pairs on this side over here. That's because this will allow me to make sure that my 5n gets to be multiplied to each of the possible factors, and I don't miss out on any possible pairings. Alright, so let's go through the list. 1n times 12 is 12n, 5n times 1 is 5n. We get 17n. That is not the term I want, since the term I want is a positive 19n. 1n times 6 is 6n, 5n times 2 is 10n, and we get 16n, again, not what we're looking for. Lastly, we're going to try 5n times 3, which is 15n, and 1n times 4, which is 4n, and we're left with 19n, exactly what we wanted. So, when we're writing, just remember that we are writing across. So my first factor is the binomial n plus 3. My second factor is 5n plus 4. And we're done. We're going to move on to number 10. In number 10, same thing, except this time the middle term is going to be negative. So when we do out these pairings, we're going to make sure that only one, both, are going to be negative. You'll notice that on this half, again, I flipped them upside down to make sure that 5x gets an opportunity to be multiplied to each factor. Before we multiply, though, we can use 2 strategies to help us solve this much faster. One, we'll see a repeat of this and this pairing, and so we'll cancel one of them. Next, because I want negative 18x, I do want a relatively large number, but 5x times negative 9 and 1x times negative 1 is way too large of a negative number. So I'm going to cancel this, which then really only leaves me with 2 choices, so I'll go right ahead. 5x times negative 1 is negative 5x. 1x times negative 9 is negative 9x. Close, but not really the term I wanted. Lastly, 5x times negative 3 is negative 15x. 1x times negative 3 is negative 3x. And I do get negative 18x, which I wanted. So when I write my answer, again, you're writing across. So the first factor is x minus 3. Second factor is going to be 5x minus 3. And we're done. Now, you've already had practice on these 2 types of questions before. So the last 2, we're going to continue on the lesson we left off on the last classwork, which is to look at terms which gives us more than one possible pair. So in 6x squared, we can both use 1x and 6x or 2x and 3x. So we do have to try the entire thing twice. And so you're just going to, for simplicity's sake, leave all of this blank and presume that you're going to try the same pairing as you've already listed above here. The second lesson that we have to continue on from last time is the fact that the third term here is going to be a negative, which only allows one of the 2 factors to be negative. Now for my first set of pairs, I've only made the top factors negative, as you can see here, and then for the second set, I've made the negatives on the bottom, just to make sure that 6x gets to multiply to each number. Alright, Let's use two strategies here before we get started, just so that we don't go through the whole process so many times. First, we'll notice that this is a repeat, so we're going to cancel one of them. Likewise, this can be cancelled because it's a repeat of this pair. Next, I'm going to be looking at this term and notice that it is going to be positive. So I'm not going to try out any pairs that give me a large negative. So for example, 6x times 7, negative 7, is way too negative compared to 1x times 7, which is way too small of a positive number. So I'm not going to try this, and for that same reason, I'm not going to try this as well. I'm also not going to try this pairing because 1x times negative 49 is way too negative for 6x times positive 1. So I'm not going to try this as well. So I've already limited my trials to just 3 pairs. Last, we're going to notice that plus 7 is relatively small. So I'm not going to try pairs that give me overly large numbers like this one. 1x times 49 is going to be 49x. 6x times negative 6, 6x times negative 1 is negative 6. That gives me a way too big of a positive number. So, without even finding out what that sum is, I'm not going to try it. So essentially, I only need to try it twice, and you'll notice 49 is way too big of a number to be multiplied to 6x. So I'm not even going to try this either. So there's really only one pair that I'm going to try, and that's this. 6x times 7 is going to be 42x. 1x times negative 7 is negative 7x, and you'll notice this is way too large of a positive number. So that means none of these pairs worked for 1x and 6x. So what we're going to do is try it one more time with 2x and 3x using the same strategies. I realize this is going to take quite a while, but you're only assigned a few questions, so I hope you'll persist until the very end. Alright. So going back to the two strategies, I do want a positive sum, so I'm not going to try numbers that'll give me an overly negative number. So I'm not going to do 2x times negative 49, for example, because that's way too negative to reconcile with 3x times positive 1. So I'm not going to try this. I'm also not going to try this for that same reason, because 3x times negative 49 is way too negative for 2x times 1 to be added to. Alright, from there, I'm also not going to try this, because from here we have a positive 7, which is a relatively small number. 2x times 49 is way too big of a positive number, so that even if I multiply by a negative number to 3x, it's going to be way too positive. And for that same reason, I'm going to get rid of the 49s and not try them. And you'll notice that these are repeats. So essentially, you're only trying twice. So let's try this pairing first. 3x times negative 7 is going to be negative 21x. 2x times positive 7 is going to be 14x. It's going to be a negative number. Actually, we should have crossed this out since the sum would have been negative. That's okay, we've tried it and figured out as well. So that only leaves us with one choice. If this doesn't work, that means we have to start from step 1 because we've made a mistake. But I can assure you we haven't made a mistake so far. So 3x times 7 is going to be 21x. 2x times negative 7 is going to be negative 14x. And we get exactly what we needed. So when we write our answer, we are going to write across. So that's 2x and 7 as our first factor, and 3x and negative 7 as our second factor. And we are done. For number 16, this is going to be the same process. I'm actually not going to solve it in full, but there's one additional step you have to take for 16 that you'll need to know for 2 of the questions on your homework. So number 16, you'll notice that they have a negative coefficient for the first term. So we're going to, just like in the videos that you've watched, factor out that negative. So I divided all these 3 terms by -1, which you can see here, and then separated it out. So negative 6a squared divided by -1 is a positive 6x squared. Negative 25a divided by -1 is going to be positive 25a. Negative 25 divided by -1 is going to give me positive 25. Now this question here looks exactly like something that we would do for number 14. So we're going to repeat that same process. It's just that in our answer we're going to have a negative. We're going to have a negative on the outside of our answer. And if we just scroll, I guess I didn't provide the answers here, so we'll just solve this out right now. Just having done this, I know that 1a and 6a pair doesn't work, and we do want 25a, so I will actually go ahead with this pairing. 2a times 5 is going to be 10a, 3a times 5 is going to be 15a, and we do get 25a. So when we write our answer, it's going to be 2a plus 5 and 3a plus 5. Your answer, just remember, has to have that negative term on the very outside. So on number 8, when you try this for homework, you'll notice these 3 terms all share a factor of 3. So you should divide away that 3, or I should say factor away that 3 before you attempt to do the crisscross method. So instead of looking at factors of 9k squared, you're actually only looking at factors of 3k squared, which simplifies our answers, or which simplifies our possibilities tremendously. And we don't have to find factors of 21, we just have to find factors of 7. So it only leaves us with 1 and 7. And since it's a positive, I'm going to keep them positive. And to make sure that 3x can multiply to both 1 and 7, I'm going to flip it upside down. And as you can see, there are only 2 possibilities. Because we're so close to the answer, we might as well do it. So if we do 1 and 7 this way, we get 3k and 7k, not what we want. So if we try 3k times 7, which is 21k, and 1k times 1, which is k, or 1k, we get 22k positive, which is exactly what we wanted. So when we write our answer, again we write across k plus 7 and 3k plus 1. Just remember that you don't want to forget the number you factored out in the very beginning. Alright, good luck with your homework, and please call or email me if you have any questions.